Is Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach, and I help people do the brain work for resolving anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and reconditioning their nervous system to wellness. And so that's what I do. And today I want to talk to you about the topic: you can't outrun sexual abuse. And I really was inspired to do this out of the blue. But this is a day where I'm in the office doing therapy, and there's just been a lot of running from these things and sexual abuse and many other things. But sexual abuse, just it was like the thing to talk about today, and and what the conversation was about was how many realizations people are having that they really thought they were okay and they weren't, and how they're really seeing that these issues that they thought that they were getting ahead of, or that they weren't. They were things that were in their personality that they thought were part of their personality were actually part of the unresolved trauma. And that is so the case. And I really wanted to talk about this now, because I don't know, you might be somebody who is running from their trauma. You might know somebody that's running from from their trauma, and and I just want you to understand right here, you really can't run from your trauma. And I don't like to say big statements like that, because there's always an exception. But the only thing you're going to be doing is running from the sexual abuse. And that's very different than living well and thriving. It's a totally different path. And I really don't want that for you. Um, and I know you don't want that for yourself as well. One of my clients today, I think it was today, anyway, at some point, was just furious that dead people are still controlling their lives. I can't tell you how many times I hear that. And they do it. This happens because we actually don't process the trauma, processing the sexual abuse. And that's really where we get our freedom. And so, really, you can't outrun sexual abuse, but you can process it. And so, I want to talk a little bit about that today, what that looks like. Because when I say that, if you're running, right, there's a reason that you're running. You're not running for no reason. And it's a very important reason that often isn't addressed. And it's because it's not, your system knows it's not safe for you to confront this, and it's not that you will not be okay if you go back there, or if you feel those emotions, or what. And so you're in a survival state of flee. You're running from it, and your system is doing it automatically for you now, because that's what your survival system thinks that will be the best for you. But if you're watching this video, you're already picking up signs that something's not right, and change is coming, and need for change is coming. And so I want to talk about that. And let's just begin at the beginning with so many people have been sexually abused. So many people have been sexually abused one time by some random person. So many people have been sexually abused for months, and some people have been sexually abused for years, and have and decades. Not maybe not decades. I'm exaggerating there, but perhaps I'm not. But at least a decade. So this stuff can go on a lot, and it goes on beyond barriers of money, of class. This is beyond all of that, and this happens. I believe this is not what statistics say, but I believe that this happens just as frequently for men as it does for women. I believe people are being sexually abused. And if you're one of those people that has been sexually abused, has had an incident, or has had a series of incidents, or this has been an integrated part of your life, your childhood, these are not things that we just outrun. And the more we outrun it, the more we live by the rhythm, by the control of the abuse. But when we get this stuff processed, we get to change the entire thing. We get to actually shift out of survival mode and being tied down to this past stuff, and we get to actually become more of who we are and thrive, really. If you are in a pattern of you're just you keep working, you don't know why you keep working, this might be one of those things. And obviously you have a history of sexual abuse. This could be one of the reasons why you're working so much. These are things where you're like, if you keep studying, if you keep eating, if you keep using, if you keep sleeping, if you keep dieting, if you keep exercising, if you keep doing all of these things, you keep moving forward, then the hope is that you will forget about it. Or at least if you stop moving, you'll go into there. We got to stay ahead of that. We can't get in there. But the deal is that the sexual abuse is part of your history. It's part of your it's part of your nervous system. It's part of your energy system. It's just part of your mind body system. and and really, I really want you to understand that brains do beautiful things with trauma. They're designed to do that. It comes with their package. But trauma is very difficult to move through the brain's healing process. The brain requires enough support to do that. And not all of us had that support in those moments when sexual abuse was taking place for us to process that. Many times, the first person we turned to betrayed us, let us down, failed to protect us. Maybe we couldn't tell anybody in our family, right? We couldn't get the support we needed. We kept it silent. We kept it a secret because that was the best choice at the time for everybody to survive. Um, there's so many reasons why we didn't get enough support in those moments. And if you were somebody that was sexually abused and you got the support, the chances are that you were able to process this and hopefully fully. And if you're seeing any of the signs I'm going to talk about later, um, then you get to resolve those. You get to give your brain the support to resolve those issues as well. And this is something that I I I don't know that I have the words to prove this well enough. This is something that I help people do all the time. So it's something I don't the methods I use. Let me tell you this. When I tell you that it's going to be, you can't outrun sexual abuse, but you can process it. I am not saying that to process it, you have to go back and relive it. You don't. You do not. I'm not saying you have to go back and I wrote words down in case they left me. You don't have to go back and retell it to heal. You don't even have to get all that close to it mentally and emotionally to heal it. And you don't have to feel all the pain of it. You don't have to feel into it to heal this. And so when I'm working with sexual abuse, we're not doing a lot of talking. So I don't have a lot of words to prove to somebody that you can process this. We just get to the business of processing it, and it processes. And then they tell me what happened, and we celebrate it and all the things they can do now that they were never able to do. And that's how it rolls over here in my world. So I don't have a bunch of fancy words about, which is frustrating because I love all the fancy words, but I don't have all the fancy words to really prove to you that you can't, that how awesome this would be if you can get this thing processed, right? I have some nerd talk to tell you that the sexual abuse is running through your nervous system and we need to get it out of your nervous system. We need to help it move through the brain's process for pulling stuff, old vibrations of pain and emotion through the healing process to release or to repurpose and really, if you really look, since we're going nerd talk on it, what one of the concepts in this is that um, we store these memories in very different ways when we can't get them fully processed. And so they still contain all the pain of the original event, and it's not functional for us. And then the brain is always pulling memories up to figure out what's going on in the present. And so when you pull up these memories that haven't been processed, you're pulling up all the pain with them. when you get this stuff processed, the brain's natural process is to pull the pain off and to clear that out. Then it looks at the details and it pulls that stuff through and it gets rid of stuff. After processing a memory, people tell me it's fuzzier. They can't see it anymore. It doesn't feel painful anymore. They can stare at it for long periods of time if they choose to. I don't encourage that. I mean, people, you do what you want with your inner world, right? But they can look at it without feeling the same old stuff, the same powerlessness, the same shame, the same regret, the same grief, the same betrayal. It's a very different stored memory. Brains are they don't tell the difference between a traumatic memory and a happy memory. They do the same thing with the same process. So a happy memory just goes through the process and gets stored. You resource it later, you pull it up later, and like let's say you're out to dinner with your friends, your brain, and it was a great, wonderful time, all to the good, right? Your brain will take that one and it just goes right through the processor and it stores the memory, and you can recall it, but it was just a memory. The brain will take a traumatic memory that's traumatic for us, and it has difficulty getting through because the brain has difficult time letting painful things through. That's why that's why we have all sorts of our brain has a very specific way of processing pain. If that specific way is hindered, interrupted, knocked off track, or anything else, this process fails us and it fails. And then the whole system wants to repeat it and then it will fail again and repeat it and fail. This is how flashbacks are created. This is why we have flashbacks. We'll have a painful memory and the brain is like, we're going to work on it. And it comes up and it the pain that's in there will get registered as needing to be the survival system will get us away from the pain and will push the traumatic event, the sexual abuse, back into the system, and it doesn't get out of the nervous system, it doesn't get out of the body, and it doesn't get out of the subconscious program, the subconscious, the way that it currently lives back there. We don't want it living back there in an unprocessed way. That is how all sorts of things happen and why we do things that we don't want to be doing. And those events, when we don't can't get something processed, it's actually will be used to hurt us in the future by our system, by the nature of something. I mean, imagine a machine that tries to load something up and it falls off, and it tries to load it up again, it falls off. As it falls off, it's going to break something down there. It's going to harm something, right? And so it's kind of like that. And then also, like, we're wearing out some machinery and it's exhausting. And though everybody just was like, we're not even going to be able to ever process all the little factory workers are exhausted. It's just not. And then everybody gets mad and then somebody at the boss says, we're not moving that stuff in ever, so pull it to the side. And then there's other people that, no, we need to get this in. So now we got inner conflict. It's a mess. It's not designed to keep failing like that. But if we don't get enough support, we will. And the support we need really comes through, it comes through the body. And really, humans are designed to give this to each other. Our bodies come with these methods of processing these things, getting trauma through. And when it can complete the process, I'm recovering from cold. I need to take a drink. Excuse me. Okay. But it will take a traumatic memory and it will process it. And at the end, it will be the same as a happy memory. It's just a memory that just took place. And the brain, when it's processing this stuff, it learns so much about this stuff. It really uses all of our experiences without um, without prejudice, without judgment. Bad, good, bad, good. It doesn't do that. The brain doesn't do that. We do that. We don't like pain. Pain bad, happy good, pain bad. The brain doesn't really do that. So it takes this stuff and learns from it the same way, and then it builds you, and it builds and helps you be more of who you are. It takes everything that happens to us and helps us be more of who we are. better at being who we are, more skillful, more mature at being who we are. And so that is such a phenomenal, yummy process and so transformative that it is just a tragedy to me that we're out trying to outrun this stuff that our brain will use to make our life better. And I know that we don't talk about, and I am not I'm not try okay. So let me just say I'm not trying to say that yay, we have this traumatic event that's going to make our life better. I would like these things to go away. But since they have not yet gone away, and since this is still occurring, we are going to be stronger, wiser, and more effective at actually resolving these things and ending generational patterns of this and other patterns of sexual abuse that are in our culture and in our society if we heal. And you will be able to end the torture cycles that occur because as your system is trying to process this trauma and failing continuously. And so I really I just I can't say enough how important this is because your brain can do so much for you. Um, and I want to say that you can't outrun it. And I want to come back to that because it's affecting you in ways that can tell. You might be aware of some of these things and it's affecting you in ways that you can't see. Trauma is always like that. And, working with hundreds of people and helping them process trauma, I see a lot of the ways it's in affecting different people. And once we resolve it, they're like, "Did you know I was doing this too?" I was like, "No, I didn't. Thanks for telling me." And they're like, "I'm not doing that anymore. I don't need that anymore." And there's so many aha moments we have after the trauma is processed because the brain goes in just and does a full sweep of your whole way of being and it's like, do we need to do this anymore? Was this is this And your survival system does that too. We have, this unsafe thing happened to us, but now where it's not it's we understand it, and we don't need all these protective mechanisms we have. Let's go through and take apart the stuff we don't need, and it will go through and take out your defense mechanisms that are no longer needed because you don't need that kind of protection anymore. Because your system has learned, the emotional wounds have healed. There's not so much emotional fragility in the situation anymore. There's more when brains heal trauma. We have so much more strength and insight and depth and richness that instinctually know we don't need those sorts of protections that we've been carrying along our whole lifetime. And that is powerful. That's where we get to when you have these kinds of issues. They show up in ways that, like for instance, they show up in your relationships. They can make us keep people farther from us than we really want. Well, when you heal, all of a sudden your system says, "Oh, I don't think we need them that far from us anymore. I think we can allow them to come in a little bit more." And now you have the people that can be closer to you, and it feels good. It doesn't feel hurtful or unsafe. Um, there's so many ways it shows up in relationships. I want to see if there's any more. Definitely, this helps. We see massive changes in people's ability to connect intimately, sexually, in ways that they've never been able to do before. Um, this changes how what happens in the mind, the different thoughts, the flashbacks stop. The brain doesn't need to keep trying to bring this traumatic event through or these traumatic events through because it's already done that. And so it doesn't need to do that anymore. And if it is referencing those scenarios, it's not doing it with the same emotional the pain and the doom and the dread and the powerlessness that it had before. Um, it's actually doing it with the new beliefs that are in the brain will take the stuff apart, take out the associations, and then it will reconnect it with new associations that That's this part of the brain's job. I don't really mess with that part because it has its own wisdom and awesomeness in there, and it will do it's like a phenomenal cook. You don't give a phenomenal cook recipes and instructions on how to cook. Like you just say, what are we eating? And that's how the front of the brain is with trauma processing. And we get to see it. And if we don't like it, we say, I'm sorry, I didn't like this dish. What else are you? Cook it again. We definitely get to do that, um, but it starts to reassociate the trauma with the beliefs we already have about ourselves now, as opposed to the beliefs we had about ourselves when we were small. And that creates a lot of shifts because this old stuff, that's part of the original package. The brain will take that whole thing apart and we and it throws it through the healing pathways, and then it shoots out the other side, and it starts reconnecting it with who you are now, all the skills you have, what you know, the beliefs you have now. And that is huge. That's when people really feel more like themselves because they're actually more more of their experiences have been connected to who they are today. And and that just means all sorts of awesome things. Um, this trauma, the sexual abuse, so shows up in your mind, but it also shows up in your body. There, it's surprising, and I don't, I think I also have this challenge, but as somebody who does this work now, it's surprising that how much of the original sensations of the abuse are still showing up in people's body. And I said I took this in a totally different direction because I was going to say something different. But let's just start over. Let me say that again. This is what not surprising. Let me say it as a truth because this is not what I was surprised about. Um, the original sensations of the abuse, whether it was the coldness of the location, the fog in the air, whatever. I don't need to trigger everybody, but the actual physical situation sensations that occurred in the moment of sexual abuse are still showing up in people's body. Okay, and then let me tell you something else. And the other thing is that the emotions in the moment are still showing up in people's bodies. Those are emotional flashbacks. And when people feel like they're so moody, right? No, actually, you're having a flashback that you don't know is a flashback. You're actually not moody. You're experiencing post traumatic stress. You didn't just flip moods. Your body remembered, made an association that triggered the past memory, the emotional component of the memory, and you're feeling the emotions from the first moment. That's how brains work. So some of the feelings, emotions, some of the sensations in your body are not even from present moment right now. And you know that because you're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Everything's fine. My stomach is aching. I feel so much tension. I feel really afraid right now. I feel powerless. I feel this. That's stuff that your brain is pulling up from the past about this memory. It thinks it belongs here. And because it doesn't know, because it didn't get this trauma processed. So it doesn't know much about the process because knowing about the process happens up here. And if this trauma can't get up here because the survival system keeps saying no, 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 then you don't get to know if this situation belongs here. Is the trauma going to happen again? Your brain doesn't know. And the processing is how the brain figures this stuff out. And that's why once this stuff is processed, you start noticing so much more calmness, so much more feelings of safety because your brain has actually figured it out. And it can be accurate about we're safe right now, we're not safe right now. This is this person, that was that person. They're not the same. If your brain has this sexual abuse trauma coming up and can't get it processed, it doesn't know if everybody's going to be like that. And logically, you know, but the survival system doesn't, your body doesn't, and your subconscious mind doesn't. They haven't figured it out yet because this is the one that processes it and figures it out for everybody, including you. And so it's so important that this stuff gets processed and you can't run from it. You can suppress it. You can deny it, you can avoid it, and you actually can run from it. You literally can run from it for the rest of your life. But we're using the figuratively speaking, you can't outrun it. It does show up. It does impact your everyday life, and it can be resolved, and it can be resolved really, really quickly. And I mean that relatively. But that I specialize in helping people resolve these issues in 2 to 6 months, right? That's not the right pace for everybody, but so it takes a year of your life. Better than running and chasing this, yeah, being on a hamster wheel, running and exhausting yourself for the rest of your life. And this impacts your ability to connect with your children. This impacts your ability to protect your children. This impacts your ability to determine what is actually dangerous and what actually isn't. This this is what keeps you bringing in abusers into your life. This is why, because your brain doesn't know, and so it hasn't figured it out, and so it just, the doors stay open, and in waltzes the next abuser, or maybe not, and so this is just such a big deal. So it comes in, it impacts your finances. The sexual abuse impacts people's finances all the time. They're overworking, they're over earning, they're not earning enough, they're overspending, they're hoarding, because we're constantly, when if we've got this issue going on, constantly seeking um, safety in one way or the other. We can find safety in money. Well, money will keep us safe. Okay. Well, shopping will keep us safe because my mind won't be on this stuff and I won't feel so bad. Food will keep us safe. I need to eat this food because I can't deal with those emotions. Right. So that, imagine that stopping and what you can do with your life then, because you will do that with your life then, because you can, because when you need safety, your survival system is in charge, and that part of the brain does not know how to make you thrive. It only knows how to keep you surviving. And you don't want your life to look like survival life. You want it to look like thriving. And so that's another reason, but you can't outrun this, because it will be surviving mode. Your life will look like that. The sexual abuse will show up in your belief system in multiple different ways. I've seen it multiple different ways. Of the world isn't safe. Men are awful. Women can't be trusted. Um, and there are women abusers just as much as there are men. Maybe not the same numbers, but it's a thing. Um, so this and our beliefs make up our subconscious programming, right? So if we can get our beliefs changed by processing this trauma, our subconscious programming changes. It's powerful. That's the level that subconscious programming is makes us do what we're doing when we haven't even thought about it. It's our automatic pilot. And when it hasn't been impacted by sexual abuse, you will see that. When sexual abuse gets processed, you will see a major shift in your autopilot. You will autopilot be doing, uh, selecting better humans to be around. You'll be autopiloting having healthy boundaries. There's so much there that will take place. And then um, um, how I will do the trauma processing with people, and then we kind of step back and look and see what happens, because usually some time has passed and their subconscious programming has shifted quite a bit, and we want to see then what's next, and then we go after, we do some of the other layers of the work, because there is other layers of their work with sexual abuse. um, it's not just about the events, it's about the When you're in survival mode, you're not really being yourself, right? So your brain hasn't had a lot of practice being yourself, and there's things that your brain will need to be to build in order for you to be yourself. And so we'll look at that stuff and make sure your brain is building it and lead your brain to build that stuff. Um, anyway, we're not talking about that. Um, but you can't outrun sexual abuse. You at some points you're going to notice, if not at most points, you're going to notice difficulty concentrating, nightmares, needing to hide, exaggerated startle response, avoiding things that could be upsetting. You're going to notice irritability, um, challenges with being touched, challenges with affection, self sabotage, right, of all kinds, because there's a need to hide, because we still need to be safe, right? And self sabotage right there can just keep us staying under the radar wherever it our brain thinks it's safe, like right here. We're not gonna have any problems, but don't get too big now. Stay down here. Don't get too wealthy, don't get too successful, don't get too close. Stay here. So our brain will set us up to keep bringing us back here if we do start advancing. And that can be the result of unprocessed sexual abuse. Um, yeah, and just in general, being less than who you are and who you're the best version of you. And if this is something in your history, and I also am talking about this because I've had clients come out and talk about this stuff, or just say, hey, so this is in my history, at in first, second, third sessions with me, when they're much older, never have told a soul, right? And it's just like, and then after they process it, they say, I wish I would have done this earlier. I can't believe I wasted all this time, and we have to do a whole grief thing. So if you're whatever age you are, now is the best time to do this. It doesn't take a long time. It's and brains do wonderful jobs with this, and it doesn't have to be painful. As a matter of fact, it really shouldn't be painful. We want to reduce the amount of pain because pain shuts down your brain's healing process. So the less pain that is evoked in this process, the more and faster healing happens. And so when you find the right strategies and you find the right interventions and you find the right person to work with, this stuff resolves so quickly. And I want you to know that some of you are the best person for yourself to work with, that you are the best person for yourself to work with. You can resolve your own trauma. That's what I why I put together the 8-week program that I did. I wanted people to heal who won't ever see a therapist, that they would have the tools and the strategies and the skills to process their trauma skillfully and safely, and so that they can be free and build in wellness. So you don't need to do all the traditional things to heal. You can do the traditional things to heal. The traditional path is getting better and better and better at this, but it's not required. It's not required. What is required is that your brain completes the trauma process, the processing of these events, of this issue. And then you're going to notice you're going to sleep better, you're going to live better, you're going to laugh better, you're going to love better, you're going to walk better, and you're going to be physically better. This stuff does show up in your body, and we don't even need to go there any further. I just want you to know that, um, and while you're running, if you're trying to outrun your sexual abuse trauma, you're running. That's only one very small part of life. You don't want to fill your whole lifetime with that. There's other things to be doing, and we really want to open you up to that. Um, so heal, and heal people, and healed people take down these systems that are no longer serving us and that are holding these dysfunctional things in place. And so, let me see. So let me tell you what to do. This is what you do. You need to find the right intervention. You need to find an intervention your brain likes. And then you follow a specific process to resolve this issue. And you've got some options. And I'm going to recommend mine because I know mine works. I love it. And I want you to be able to take care of your brain, not just with traumatic issues, but with any other issues. Your brain may decide one day, I need some help. I want you to be able to help your brain. And I know that that's the outcome I get people in my program. And so I have two options. I have a program called Inner World Transformation. And in this program, I walk you through each step of the trauma processing process and help you resolve this stuff and help you really look in the nooks and cranny and help your brain do some pretty awesome building projects like building in new subconscious programming, building in new ways of being, and building and making sure things are functioning from within, like confidence and joy and feelings of safety. These are all things that need to be generated from the inside out for you to live well. And so that's stuff that I teach you how to do that in the program. I walk you through the exercises. It's not a talk program. It is a get in there and get some brain push-ups going. Like we're putting your brain to work, and I'm showing you how to put your own brain to work. And so that you can do that as a self-study program, or you can have me walk you through that process in my 8-week intensive coaching program. And you can see both of those options on my website at rachelmcleod.com. I've left the link in the header here, so you can click on that and look around and see if I'm the one you want to help you. And if you're the one you want to help you, see if that's the process you want to follow. It is a step-by-step process designed to help you understand your brain function and then get busy working. And I help you build your skills in there. It's awesome. The other options you have are the 4 interventions that I love the most. I'm going to give them to you in order of popularity in the country and your most likelihood of finding somebody who does these interventions. And the first one is EMDR. This one can be not the right fit for sexual abuse trauma processing, and it can be a wonderful fit. It really depends on you. And but the problem here is that lots of therapists are only trained in EMDR; they're not trained in anything else. So if it's not the right fit for you, you'll need to find somebody else that does it. That does other interventions, you'll have to jump around. So I'm going to tell you the other ones so that you can, if it's not the right fit for you, or you don't want to do it anyway, because you've heard some gnarly things about it and you suspect it's not for you. Another one is EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and uses acupressure to help the brain heal itself. And so you're using one of the brain's healing mechanisms. Same thing with EMDR. The eye movement, the rapid eye movement, is helps our brain process emotions and subconscious material. It's one of the things we're doing while we're sleeping. It's natural. We just do it while we're awake, and so we can control the process a little bit more and make sure the process completes. And we can choose which process we want to work on. Where when you're sleeping, all bets are off. Your brain's doing whatever it wants to do up there, which is great. But sometimes you're like, hey, this over here, this problem we got here, we need to process this. Let's go. And we help the brain focus in its healing process on that issue. EFT is using the meridian system, which is wonderful and really, really fast. And it doesn't have any of the negative side effects that EMDR does. And so that's a wonderful, and that people can use this themselves. I teach this to people right away when you sign up in my email list. I'm sending you intervention trainings because I want you to try this stuff out. Plus, you can heal yourself and go do that. Start healing. Work with your brain to heal. And in the beginning, when you're using these interventions, you don't have a lot of skill for this. But if you can start feeling a difference, it kind of excites you to like, what else can this do? That's what it did for me. Um, and so EFT is really great for that. And yeah, sign up for my email list if you want to try out to play with some interventions, because the next one I'm going to send you is a thought field therapy intervention. Thought field therapy is the mother of EFT. So it's also using the meridian system, but it also has another intervention in there. That's my favorite trauma processing intervention. And I send you a video of that on the third day of the emails sending at you sign up, I send you the first intervention, then I send you the next one. No, then 2 days later, I send you this intervention that I love, my favorite trauma processing intervention. Try it out, explore. And then energy medicine. And energy medicine is not covered by insurance yet, and but it is wonderful. And I've had a couple of clients who cannot do any of these. It has not been the right fit for them, and we have done phenomenal work with energy medicine. um, but so these are some really great interventions out here that really help the body and the mind and the brain complete the trauma processing process. And that's really what we want. And we're using these ones because the part of the problem that we have, we're not having logical problems with the trauma. We're having an emotional problem. We're having a pain problem with the trauma. And so if we use these interventions, they desensitize the pain. So it's kind of like it's like numbing something that you were going to work on, like a tooth or, whatever. Um, you numb it first and then you do the work, because it's very hard to work on humans that are in pain. And the same thing with trauma processing. We use these interventions to help the brain do its own desensitizing, to take the pain out, and then the whole brain gets together and works on it. But these interventions also are communicating directly to the survival system, which is the part of the brain that will either allow healing to happen or will lock the healing doors and close the healing gate. And so we want to work with that gatekeeper let's let this healing happen. And these interventions work very specific there. And so this type of trauma processing really works with that part of the brain specifically. And that's why we don't need to talk about it or retell it or relive it, because we're not working with that part of the brain. When we're talking about it and we're reliving it, we're working with this part of the brain, the thinking center. And I don't find that that gets fast results. I like fast results, and I don't find that that gets us painless results. And I find that it can re-traumatize us and really enrage or activate the survival system. And if that part of the brain is not in agreement with healing, healing's not happening, period. And so, really, when we work with that part of the brain, everything happens well, because all parts of you are in alignment with the healing process. And so, healing happens. And I like it when that happens. And um, so when you're out there looking for someone to help you do your trauma processing, you're looking for I'm being biased right now. In my opinion, you want to find somebody that's trained in one of those or all of those. And if they're not, be equipped with your own intervention. That's why I would encourage you to get on my email list and start and watch those videos, try, experiment with those. Those are wonderful supports as you're going through EMDR therapy or trauma processing, or sometimes you're working with a therapist who's trauma informed, but they don't work with the survival system. They don't engage that part of the brain in the healing work. Um, I don't recommend that. I am not a fan of that. You would have really, they really need to prove themselves to me on this, because I have strong feelings about that. I do. I think you can see that I have very strong feelings about processing trauma without engaging the survival system. I do. And someone would have to massively prove to me that. I'm skeptical. I think talk therapies are wonderful for what they're wonderful for: support, knowledge, learning, those sorts of things. But trauma processing, you heard it from me first. But anyway, I'm the one you're listening to right now, getting advice about about what to do with this trauma processing. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Sorry. And anyway, it seems to me like the old way of doing things. And I would like you, I'm wishing you a speedy, wonderful, even fun healing process. And it can be. So why not? So, and there's lots of tricks for that. Do those tricks. Have a good time with this. Play a healing game with your brain. So many ways to do this to get out of massive problems. Gosh, I told you, one of my clients hasn't been sleeping for 15 years, and now after a week of this work, they're sleeping. Problem solved, right? I mean, brains heal. Your brain wants to heal. Our whole system wants to heal. And when we give it the support it needs, shifts happen. Some things take a little bit longer, right? So it takes 8 weeks to start sleeping better. Great. Let's do it. So it's better than 3 years or the old statements of, oh, you're just going to have to cope with this. No, don't be coping. Get support. And gosh, if somebody tells you you just need to cope with this, I mean, okay, let me tell you. When I get people, I'm going to show you the thing I just drew. If I can find it. It was gorgeous. Oh, there it is. This is what someone's disorder looks like when they come to me, right? This is what I was talking with a therapist. I drew this for her. And she's like, yeah. This is, let's say this is PTSD, right? We've got some real big hot spots in some of these locations, right? And then we got a whole mess. It looks like my hair, right? Which this is fabulous, right? But you better approach this properly and not try to start combing it out from the wrong spot. Like if you start trying to comb curls out from the root, you have made massive knots in my hair. I'm gonna have to cut it all off, and then, woo, we got a problem. But when we start this process with somebody with a disorder, we want to start at the right place because we don't want to start at the wrong place. Because we want to make this nice and smooth. We want the brain to have processed it. I think about it laying in straight noodles, right? Right here, it just looks like spaghetti all torn up with each other, you know. But I think it's just we want it to look smooth. So we're going to detangle this whole trauma mess. And why did I tell you this? I'm just having fun. Okay, coping. Okay, and this is this therapist. She's wonderful, and she was sharing that it can be really tough when you're doing this work with somebody and they're still having panic attacks, right? And so what I shared is that, well, yeah, they're still going to have panic attacks for a bit. If somebody's having panic attacks, probably what I would target first because they're so miserable. And so if we get those out of the way, they'll have more brain space to do more healing work at a different place. And so right here, we choose our place to start working with. And let's say we're going to take panic attacks, right? And so that's panic attacks. We're going to cover this right here. This is what we're working on. We've selected this thing. I tried to circle it, but it didn't work. So I put this little thing over it. And this is where we're working. All this stuff is still happening while we're working on this piece. And we want to, and panic attacks can have, we're going to resolve the root issue. Panic attacks can have one root issue or 17, right? And so if it has one, great. We go in there, we do some panic attack work one place, and all panic attacks stop when we get to the root and resolve it. If it has 17, a lot of times what happens is you need to do 3, 4, 5. You'll resolve the first panic attack. That one will resolve the first root, and it will resolve all the panic attacks associated with that root issue. Then you'll go to the next root issue, and you'll find the next panic attack that's still active, and or that happened recently, and you'll get to the root of that one, and you'll resolve that root as well. And panic attacks will keep coming until you've resolved the root issues. As you resolve the root issues, those are also the root issues of some of this, and it will start shifting. So this will start getting smoother like that spaghetti. And so my point being is that there will be some coping still involved while we're doing this work. And when we're done with that, then we're going to choose the next one. But there will be less coping. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to let's say, this I always work with the client to figure out what we're going to do next. Their brain will always tell us. Um, and so, well, they decide we're going to do this one. I want that gone. Okay, let's go. So that's what we're going to pay attention to. We're not paying attention to this other stuff unless it forces us to, which means the brain says, hey, pause that, please. Can we work on that? And so you get my point. So we're coming for the whole page. We're coming for all of this stuff, right? And so, yeah, there's some coping that's going to need to be in place while we're doing this work. But coping as the forever strategy? No, absolutely not. So I'm not saying coping is a horrible thing. It's a strategy to be used, but not a lifestyle. That is what I wanted to say. I said it. That feels very good to have said that. And that's it for me. I'm going to check to see if there's any comments. Nope. So I'm going to get off. But I just don't want you running from this. I want you healing from this. It's so powerful, and it's so powerful to be free. It's so powerful to be marching to your own beat. It's so powerful to be living, thriving. It's so powerful to be thriving. So that's all for me, and I will see you another time. Take care.